nonpartisan. All right, so hi everyone, my name is Angel and I am the Distributed Training Specialist with the Redistricting Data Hub. And so my work mainly involves holding training sessions for organizations or really anyone who is interested in redistricting and wants to get involved. So today I will actually specifically talk about the data that we offer on our website and kind of backtrack a little bit into just, what data formats are available that we typically host, what they look like when you try to use them, or what software they're compatible with. And so just really doing a deep dive into the data basics that you might need to know before you hop onto our website and download any data. And so I will be monitoring the chat, as I mentioned. Feel free to throw in any questions there. I will try to answer them all at the end. And if not, I'll point you to someone who can. This meeting will be recorded and we do intend to host it on our website. So you can find anything afterwards on the website. And I do have to say at the very, very end, there will be a super brief survey for you to fill out. This is just for us to get more feedback on the training and gauge, what you feel like you would need after this in order to use our resources or get involved. So let us get started. And so for the agenda, I'm going to very briefly highlight some things regarding the census data delay status. And then I will get into the data file types, CSV and shapefiles, and the compatible software to view them at. The bulk of the presentation will really be the Redistricting Data Hub data that we host on our website. And last but not least, I'll always point folks to opportunities for training and support in the future. So before we start, our website is redistrictingdatahub.org. Super simple, no frills. The contact information is info@redistrictingdatahub.org. Any data inquiries, any questions, you need help finding something, you need, you don't know where to find certain information, that's where you go. If you have any training feedback or training specific inquiries, you can come to me at angel@redistrictingdatahub.org. All right, and now we'll actually get started now. And so the apportionment counts were recently released, so each state should know, concretely what they will be gaining, losing, or keeping in terms of the number of representatives. And I will go over briefly what we can expect in terms of the census delay in regards to September. And hold on just one second. Let me get this. Oop. All right, so I think we all have September 30th ingrained deeply into our brains now, but the census actually said that they will be releasing legacy files sometime mid to late August. So what this is these are untabulated summary files, and so basically they're not in the data table forms that folks might be used to yet. They're just going to release those ahead of time mid to late August before they actually make it user-friendly for their September 30th release. And so what RDH actually will be doing is we will be processing those legacy files nationwide and releasing those publicly for people to use. So this is actually I think it's really cool because, the Census Bureau has determined that states should be given the opportunity to use any outside vendors to process these legacy format summary files. If the states didn't have the capacity to tabulate the data on their own, we realize that, individual folks might not have access to, outside vendors in order to process this. So we will be doing that on our end and making that publicly accessible. All right, and then now I will be going over the different data file types and compatible software. So I'll mostly be introducing CSVs and shapefiles. If folks are not too familiar with those, that's totally okay. These are the main data files that we do host on our website, so that's why I'm focusing on those. So I do want to highlight that if you don't have any data background, this might be, me throwing words at you and be super, convoluted, but I will give more information after each slide. So just hold on, you can take a look at what they might look like. So CSV stands for comma separated values. These are delimited text files that use commas to separate the values with each line representing a single item. That sounds like a lot. I'll break that down in just a second. Shapefiles are vector data storage formats that hold information about location, shape, and attributes of those geographic features. So I'm just going to get into the CSV file first. So basically, CSV formats mean that all the fields and all the corresponding values stored in the file are separated by 1 comma or a comma each. And so these are actually really easy to import into Excel if that's what you work with, or Google Sheets. If you're more sophisticated, software such as R and Python are also really great for reading these files. But here's what this looks like. So I opened this just using the default software available on my MacBook. And so that is Text Editor. Depending on your computer, it might look slightly different, but this is what that looks like. As you can see, not very readable at all. You can see just lines of text, and you can see where it's, there are commas all over the place, and that's basically what separates each value. And so how this file typically goes is at the very top, there is a header. And so this header has a list of all the column names in the file. So you see GeoID, name, state, county, and then this is just a list of every single column that will be included in the file. And then moving forward, when you look at the second block highlighted, each value of these corresponds with a column header. So you see the super long number at the beginning, that corresponds with the GeoID. And then this is followed by a comma here as well. And then you see block group 1. And so that is the name. And then you can see, when you go to, you look at state, you can see that this is the full name is block group 1, census tract 1, Albany County, New York. And then, so that is the name. And then you see another comma here, and then it's followed by the state, as you can see up here. So each one should match up with, like, the positioning does match up. And so even so, I know this is super, super hard to read. And so I threw this into Google Sheets, just, using, importing it through Google. And so this is what all the information, once it's, the commas are kind of read into each column appropriately, this is what they look like. So you can see all the GeoIDs, all the names appropriately. Of course, these are all in New York State because that's where I pulled the file from. And it starts in Albany County, but then there are more counties as you go down. And so all the information that you would want to know will be also here. And so these are like population counts. So this would be the total population for this certain block group in Albany County. So there are 1,430 people here. And so this is really useful once if you figure out which block group you're interested in, or block groups that you might be interested in, you can figure out how many people are in that population for whichever years that you want to look at and do an analysis that way. And then moving forward to shapefiles, shapefiles are actually specific to something called GIS, or Geographic Information System softwares. And so the most common ones are ArcGIS and QGIS. ArcGIS tends to be a paid software, and so folks do usually maybe lean towards QGIS if they're trying to look for a free software. There are some online mapping tools that we use which allow you to import or export in a shapefile format. And so if you have been using, Dave's redistricting app, or even District R, some of these files let you import or export certain formats. And so that's what the SHP means. And so the shapefiles store the location and any related information for that location, as you just saw. It's very similar to the CSV, where the one line corresponds to that one exact block group in a given state, and then it has all the corresponding information. And so let me show you what this might look like. So I was actually able to use this for folks who aren't trying to do any, editing. I was actually able to use mapshaper.org to open this. And so you can see here, this is actually hard to see, but I selected this block group just for fun. And then you can see the GeoID is this long number, and then it has the name as well as the state. And then you see the total population for this specific block group is 640, and has all that information on this really nifty side table for you to see. So, if you decide to select, your own block group, you can see all of the corresponding information for that. And I can actually show you, just give me 1 second. MapShaper, This is a really, really great way for you to view any of the block groups that you're interested in, as well as any corresponding information. And all you would have to do is download the zip file from our website, which I will show in just a second, and import all of the files. So one thing I do want to note is that with the shape files, when you download it, it comes as a zip file. When you open the zip file, there are many files inside. You have to use all of those together because all of those files together form the shape file itself. And I will definitely show this in just a second. But moving forward, as I mentioned previously on our RDH website, we make both CSV and shape files available for most downloads. So of course, the CSV might not be available for data that is primarily spatial in nature. So if they have, not much corresponding information besides just their location points, we do keep that just as shape file. Both CSVs and shape files, as I pointed out in the demonstrations, they do include something called the GeoID. So the GeoID is what makes it possible to identify the location, whether it is a census block or census tract. They should all have a unique GeoID assigned. And so in terms of our Redistricting Data Hub and the data that we have available, I will be highlighting the different data sets. So for some of you, this might be a refresher, but feel free to drop any questions in the chats. But specifically, I'll cover what data we host and what information these files include. And so in terms of what data is used in redistricting, officially, of course, the 2020 census data and geographies. And so this is usually explicitly required or just implied in the state constitutions. Some states do allow the use of census or other data sets. And so some of our resources might be, available to assist. So one thing that we do host voter file data. So voter file data is useful for understanding the population of eligible voters and is sometimes used for racially polarized voting analyses. It can also be used to analyze partisan gerrymandering. And then moving forward, boundaries, of course, these are just the boundaries of the state or counties within the state, or if you want to get super granular, it can go down to census tract, census block, and block group. And then moving down from there, we do have incumbent address data. We also have, and I'll get into all of these, we also have demographic projections. So unlike state level projections, which are actually provided by the Census Bureau, we've actually, Haystack DNA has actually created census block level projections, which can be used to measure, perhaps the impact of a proposed redistricting plan at a more granular scale. And of course, we do have precinct election data tied with boundary shape files and American Community Survey demographic data. The only one in progress here is incumbent address data, and I'll explain in a little bit why that is. So we do have 2010 and 2020 boundaries. So these files include boundaries for the specific state, and these are all offered at the block group, census tract, county, and state. So it goes all the way up. And for some of the states, there are 2020 zip code tabulated areas, AIA and MH boundaries, and VTDs, which are voting tabulated districts. And so you can find these on our website, and I'll show you exactly how. But since these are geographic boundaries, they are limited to the shapefile format. And the shapefile, when you click on it, as you can see in MapShaper, it would have very, very little information compared to the one I just showed you, such as total population. And then moving forward, we have ACS 5-year estimates. So this includes population by race and ethnicity, immigration statistics, and also language. So the specific fields for each ACS 5-year estimate file will be included in the metadata. I will also show this when I go over the website, but the metadata is basically a file that describes where all the information was retrieved from, any processing that we've done on our end, and what fields are included. And so we have American Community Survey 5-year estimates from 2010 to 2019 for most of the geographies mentioned previously. So that would be block group, census tract, county, and state. One thing I do want to know that is this is with the exception of 2010 to 2012 estimates for block groups. And not all data is readily available at the block group level. So some data such as, I believe it's language and citizenship, this is usually only available at the tract level, whereas race is usually, I think, only available at the block group level. So there is some discrepancy with what's available depending on the geography you choose to view it at. And so these are offered in both shapefile and CSV format. So we do this because there are folks who want to take the CSV file format and match it to a different shapefile using the GeoIDs. This gets a little complicated, but even so, we do want to note that data is averaged using previous year's data, hence the 5-year estimates in the name, and so they may not be the most accurate. And then similar to the ACS 5-year estimates, we also have CVAP data, which is citizen voting age population data. And this is available also in both shapefile and CSV format. And so this data has statistics on citizen populations by race and ethnicity. It's also available from 2010 to 2019 for block group, census tract, county, and state. And so these are also averaged at the 5-year estimates level, so do keep that in mind when using them. We do modify the categories to match the OMB categories, and all the ACS documentation is also found in the metadata. And for those for those who might not be super familiar, there are the OMB race and ethnicity categories available online, and OMB is the Office of Management and Budget. Okay, awesome. And so moving forward to the population projections or the demographic projections I mentioned earlier, Haystack DNA did take the Census Bureau's state level projections, and then they disaggregated them or just broke them down into smaller pieces to block and block group versions. And so these projections span from 2020 to 2030 and offered in both P1 and P2. The difference between P1 and P2 is that P2 demarcates Hispanic and non-Hispanic rather than just combining them into one field. And so while these might provide a more granular perspective than the state level projections, again, we do want to say that these should be taken with a grain of salt since, forecasting future populations are using statistical methods, and these are, estimates at the end of the day. There is a question in the chat. Is there a link you can provide us for the CVAP data, or will we have a new 5-year estimated data released? Yeah, I can actually show you on our website where all the data is located in about 2 slides. So I will get there. Voter file. So moving forward to the voter file data, we actually do we purchased a voter file from the vendor L2. And so this is actually a national voter file vendor. And currently we offer this file aggregated to the 2010 census block level. We will soon be offering it at the 2020 census block level. So this is just, updating it to the most recent geographies that we have. And so this file holds information, regarding the count of voters, whether it's by age group, ethnicity, party affiliation, or election voting history. This is a live file in L2's database, but we retrieved the data on March 9th, 2021. So all counts correspond to the voters that were registered as of that date, March 9th. And so while we get this information live, our file is not live, so just keep that in mind. And then almost last but not least, incumbent address data is a file that we have purchased from Carl Klarner. So this is not yet up on the website. It will include information about current incumbents, such as their district number and party registration and address. One thing we do want to note is this data set specifically will be under restricted access. So not all users can access it and will need to fill out a form prior. But very exciting news is that it will possibly, I don't want to make any promises, but it could be live by the end of this week. And so if you're looking to, figure out where incumbents live or tie, changes to their districts to the incumbent, this is something that you might be looking at. And actually, last but not least, we have precinct level election results merged with precinct boundaries. And so this is collected by our data partners such as MGGG, PGP, and VEST. And so one thing we actually do is we have our data analysts review these files through our partner data validation effort. And so each state should have one validated data set and a report that goes along with it. This is because we recognize that, in courts, having information or having data that is credible and properly documented is really, really important, since we do want to be a credible source and have everything very transparent. So that's why we go through this partner data validation effort when we get these files from other folks. So now I will go through the website and show you where everything can be found. And so I will navigate to, so this is our website. All right, this is our website, and at the front, we do have our infographic. You can select a state by clicking on it or just using the drop down. I will click on just Texas because it's a massive state and I always click on it. But this is what I'm referring to in terms of the partner data validation criteria. And so we do want to make sure, all of the precinct shapefiles joined to the precinct election results are accurate. So we do have our own criteria that we use to evaluate these data sets and a report that goes along with it. So let me just show you. And of course, you can see there are a ton of things you can scroll through, but these are the precinct and election results, and this file was provided by MGGG. So once you open it, you can see we have our validation criteria conveniently just pasted here, and you can see whether or not the file met these criteria. And then we have our validation report, which when you click on it, it will show you all information regarding where we got where we got all the data, what processing method we use, and whether we were able to successfully validate it, which in this case we were. And then if you wanted to download it, you can click the download button. One thing I do want to highlight is that when you click the download button, it will take you to this page, and you need to agree to our terms and conditions of use every time that you try to download a data set. Just because it's really long, you can go ahead and read it if you want, but simply saying, you're not using this data set for gerrymandering and, nefarious purposes. Everything on our website is free. You would just need to make an account before you need to download the data. But moving back to Texas. So as you can see here, let's see. So Lottie said, for the CVAP data. So we have all of our CVAP data here. And so when we say, we've further clarified the names now, but so when it says 2010 block group CVAP data, it's actually the 5 years preceding it, 2006 to 2010. So these are the years where all the estimates are averaged at. And so when you click on it, we have this information in both CSV and shapefile, just in case you wanted to attach the CSV using the GeoIDs to a different shapefile. And then the shapefile does include all the information that is provided in the CSV. So you can download these if you wanted. And when you open the metadata, if you're concerned at all about where we get our data, we have very detailed information about this as well. And so we include the source, and these are all the field names. So when I was showing folks, let me just go back here. So this is New York, but the field name should be similar. So when I'm showing you all of this, you might be wondering, what do these names actually mean? Like C underscore, AIW10, like that to me at a first glance does not mean anything. So when you go to the metadata, sorry, I have so many tabs open now, but when you go to the metadata, you can find the field name. You see this is CAS and MOE. And then you can see this is the citizen margin of error for agent alone or in combination. So at first glance, I definitely would not have guessed that. But for those who are not super familiar with these field names, this is exactly where you can go to figure out what each field name means. So this is the citizen estimate for total. So that is where you can view all that information. And of course, any processing steps we did are included down here just to be transparent, and any additional notes also here. And I believe that is most of our data. We do host congressional districts, and so these are the lines for the existing districts for these years. These we actually retrieve from All About Redistricting. So if you wanted to, actually I've been able to do this before, but if you wanted to take these congressional districts, import it into an online mapping software and see where those lines fall with in regards to your created district map, that's something you can do, I believe, on Days for Districting app. And then all the way down is where we have missing files. I kind of call this in my head upcoming files, since they're missing because they're just not up yet. But these are all the files we are waiting to get up. Of course, we have all waiting on the 2020 census data, but also waiting on incumbent address data, as well as projections using the 2020 census data. So all of these, we have more info on when they should be up and the date expected. And of course, the source as well. So this is just all of our data, and this is pretty similar for all of the states. And one last thing I do want to highlight is anyone, if you have any questions, at the very bottom right, you can see there is a support widget. I highly recommend using this. Sometimes I use this too. But this is just where if you have a question or comment, you can throw that at us. And we will get back to you within 1 or 2 business days. And so that's just, if you're wondering where to find more information about your state criteria or anything of the sort, we can try to help or direct you to the best resource. And one last thing I do want to highlight is we recently came up with, and so this is actually under the Engage tab at the top, and this is called Choose Your Own Mapping Tool. So I don't know if folks have poked around on our website, but we have created the Choose Your Own Mapping tool. And so if folks are interested in participating in the redistricting cycle and providing testimony or maps to your state legislature or commission, and you haven't chosen what mapping tool best fits your needs, this is exactly what this tool is meant to do. Less of a tool, more of a very neatly compiled table, but basically you can look at all the features, the costs, whether it's free or paid, whether it has these data, if at the very end we have available languages, and so some tools do have different languages. If you wanted to learn more about different tools and you didn't want to go into each of them and figure out what's different and what features are best for you, this is where we've gone ahead and done that for you. We've gone in and looked at all the tools and kind of compiled this neat tool for you. And so all additional summaries of the tools can be found here as well. And you can click on it and it'll directly take you to, so like if I click on DRA 2020, it'll take you directly there. And last but not least, training and support, how to contact us and where to give feedback. Again, would really appreciate any feedback, any suggestions for future trainings if you found this helpful. If not, we really do want to know. Don't feel free to hurt my feelings. I will not be, I really do appreciate and I'm grateful for any feedback or suggestions for future trainings on what might be helpful, since our mission is really to make everything super accessible. And so it is just a bit.ly link and it is case sensitive. So you do have to capitalize RDH and then it's training, which is not capitalized. But for time sensitive inquiries, again, info@redistrictingdatahub.org. And that concludes the presentation. I realize I threw a lot at everyone. Let's see, I see we have a question. Will RDH provide the headers for each of these types of files? Jim, do you mean like the header as in here where you see like the GeoID, name, state? Because those are included in all the CSV files. if not, let me know if that does not answer your question, and I can see. Let's see. And I will also stop sharing. If there are any other questions, I am happy to answer. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, and it is a Monday, so I will just gonna give it a minute, but I will let you all go and enjoy your Mondays. But again, any questions, please feel free to email. You can also email me directly for any training feedback. Oh yes, so AIA and an HR, the American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian areas. That's a lot to know. Yes, I will be sure to include that in the future. Yeah. Right. Yeah, thank you folks for all attending. I'm glad this was helpful to you. And have a lovely Monday.